When I moved to San Antonio, it was a little bit less oppressive. Okay. I don't have to go to church to speak in tongues. I can go get frozen yogurt.
Yeah.
I remember getting into an argument because I said I wanted to keep my last name if I got married. He's like, especially like if you have a boy and he doesn't have his father's last name, you've stripped him of something integral. And I was just like, so he can't be a good man unless he has your name?
How much did you travel around the state, or was it really like you were in that town and that was kind of the world that you knew? And partly I'm only saying this because since Texas is just geographically so massive.
It's big.
Other than Alaska, it is the biggest state in the lower 48 states. And again, it has a lot of people and a lot, different groups. Were you just in different areas and you saw, again, like certain through lines, or was it like, oh, I was in Houston, I was in Dallas, that was completely different from this like Texas small town where there is this like borderline, or full on like cult level of highly fundamentalist Christian Pentecostal, understanding of the world?
No, definitely. I lived in San Antonio. I lived in La Vernia, and then I moved to San Antonio.
Okay.
When I moved to San Antonio, it was a little bit less oppressive. Okay. It was a little bit more like, like, I don't have to go to church to speak in tongues. I can go get frozen yogurt. And that's okay. And then when I moved to Dallas, of course, I went to the really uber Christian college. So I was encountering that through line. Right. But I was deconstructing, and so I would go get drunk all the time and go to Dallas and like sneak into clubs. I knew a couple bouncers that would let me in underage. And that was a lot of fun because I not only got to like party a little bit, but I met people who expanded my worldview. So like they were mostly men because, I was going there to meet men.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But they were like, oh, I'm a doctor and this is what I believe and this is what led me to this path. And I took all of that in like, oh, wow, like you can be successful without God. And that was really interesting. So it's not like every single person in Texas, especially in the big cities, feel this like, oh, you need to have God's hand on you in order to succeed. A lot of them did. But there were a few that really stuck out to me that I was like, oh, and you're not Christian. And they were like, no. And I was like, oh, and you're still successful. And that gave me a lot of courage when I decided to leave the faith. Yeah. But those were few and far between, even in big cities.
Even in big cities, it was still like, there was a sense of, pretty much people are Christian here. And again, whether that is, again, evangelical Protestant,
like there was like a casual Christianity where they were like, yeah, I'm still going to have sex, I'm still going to drink, but like I know God is watching over me.
It's like, oh, I shouldn't do it.
But like God forgives me and like I move on and God has blessed me with every good thing that I have. And every bad thing I've encountered is from the devil. And so there was a lot of that, even in big cities. It was just more casual Christianity. But there were outliers. And in Austin especially, I felt like there was a lot of outliers in Austin.
I mean, it does seem, not to generalize here, that Austin's almost like a weird sort of like quasi-California colony at this point. It's sort of like, I don't really count Austin as like, if you want to see Texas, like that's not Austin.
That's Austin. That's California.
That's California, and they got
and they have good Mexican food too.
Yeah, exactly.
They have Tex-Mex, which is different than Mexican food.
No, that like I've been there a couple of times, and that's always kind of how I felt. Like I feel like I'm kind of in like Southern California with like Texas, maybe a little bit of Colorado thrown in. Not that I've ever been to Colorado, but that sort of idea of like, it's maybe a bit more libertarian. It's a little bit, and again, like I don't, I'm not going to get on sort of my own personal grievances with what I see in, certain blue states with certain authoritarian policies, but there's maybe a more of a libertarian kind of blue, liberal, general, you kind of do what you want, live and let live culture in Texas, in Austin, with some Texas kind of hints, some local branding that you're like, okay, we're in Texas, we're not in Denver. But it's not like what you're describing of like, this was the life I knew growing up.
Yeah, and West Texas, especially from the people I've known in West Texas, is very religious. And it's very rural, very red, very right-leaning. And so that's a big part of, like Texas is like it's like made up of these small rural towns. And the experiences are really similar. And then you go, and then I think a lot of people go to college and then they experience something else. I mean, I don't know, but you have A&M, which is really conservative, and a lot of people go to A&M and want to go to A&M.
And for people who don't know, what is A&M?
A&M is like a really big university in Texas. It is like the antithesis to UT, University of Texas. Okay. The Longhorns and the Aggies. So that's like the two, and people hate the Longhorns unless you are in Austin. People love the Aggies, no matter where you're at. And Aggie land, as they call it, is in the middle of nowhere. And so all there is to do is like drink and go to church. But it's a huge campus. Yeah. It's like it's a really big school.
Okay. Where specifically in Texas is it?
I want to say.
Like it's
I don't know. I don't know where it's at. Like geographically, I've driven there a few times, and I feel like it's like if this is the map. It's east.
Okay. It's like east, sort of vaguely north.
But if that's wrong, then I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. You cut this part out or whatever. If it's like, we don't know. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, this has obviously gone in a really, really, really interesting direction, which I love. I love it when the conversations aren't just like, I ask questions and you tell me like a primer. And like, I want to hear these personal stories. Like, this is fantastic. I love this. Are there other aspects of your time living there as it related to your personal life that you'd want to get into in terms of like, I don't even want to say at this point Texas as a whole, because the discussion's gone in such an interesting direction.
Yeah,
but
just such a niche experience.
Yeah, that like you want to get into.
Yeah, I think dating in Texas was really interesting. Okay. Dating in Texas was kind of a shit show. Because you have so many conservative men. Even when they are like, I'm a libertarian. And they just want to get laid. Right. They're not a libertarian. Like, and they're like, so like, I remember getting into an argument because I said I wanted to keep my last name if I got married. And he was like, why would you do that? And I was just like, because it's my name. I want to keep it. And if I have kids, they would get my name because I grew them. I did the work. I am going to raise them most likely without much help from you. Like, they would be mine. And he was like, that's their identity that you're stripping from them. Like, you are stripping them of their identity because they don't have my last name. And I was just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, they aren't going to know how to be like. He's like, especially like if you have a boy and he doesn't have his father's last name, you've stripped him of something integral. And I was just like, so he can't be a good man unless he has your name? Like, that's my end goal in raising a son, is like raising a good man.
Yeah. It should be the case in both cases,
was like something like a legacy. And it was just like, whoa, that's weird. They were always like, no, you are a woman and therefore should act as such. And I was like, but I'm smarter than you. Right, yeah. And they were like, no. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And it was just like that consistent, like, I'm a man. Right. And as a man, I must dominate in every aspect. And so it was really weird dating in Texas because there was just this heavy objectification of women and this idea of beauty in women. Like you needed to, I learned from a very young age how to do my hair, how to do my makeup, how to dress for my body type. Like, it was very heavily like pushed that like that Southern charm, that Southern beauty was like a very big presence, and men expected that. They were not men who would be like, oh, you're tired today, you didn't want to put on makeup? They would be like, why? So it was like a really weird experience, and then moving to California was a huge culture shock, because men in California were so different from men in Texas. And even going out in Texas, like clubbing, was like you did your hair big, you wore fake lashes, you did all the makeup, you wore something like skimpy, and you went out, and that was how you went out. Going out here is like people wear streetwear to like bars, you know, like you would never wear streetwear in Texas. Like it was like you go out to go out. So that was like a big difference in the two.
Yeah, and obviously that carries then into dynamics between men and women, because if that's how things are set up in dating, that carries through as you get older, and then those dynamics exist continually through, I mean, the whole society basically.
Yeah.
When you're growing up, in terms of the level of men are assuming like, oh well, obviously we're going to be in superior position simply because we're men, not that we've earned it as individual people, but simply because of our sex.
Yeah, and you